I'm going to throw out some statements that I imagine a lot of our listeners have heard or even said in the workplace. And then I want you to give me the statement back, but in a different mindset. These meetings are a waste of time.
What can I do to help these meetings move forward on a higher level?
I like it. All right. You are annoying the crap out of me right now. How do you fix that one? The sound of that tractor means it's time for us to go to work. You're listening to the Give Us the Dirt podcast powered by Hoopah Grading Company. My name is Brandon, and I am your host. I want to thank you for joining us today on the Give Us the Dirt podcast. In this episode of Give Us the Dirt, we've got a guest, Mikel Bowman, president of Bowman Legacies, a boutique consultancy specializing in leadership development and organizational culture. With a remarkable career spanning over 20 years in the mining industry with a concentration in leadership and upper management, Mikel is on a mission to transform the lives of blue-collar individuals one CEO at a time. Today, we'll dig into his journey through mentorship, safety protocols, practical experiences, as well as his unique perspective gained from counseling and involvement in the nonprofit sector. If you're looking for ways to elevate your leadership skills, stay for the entire episode so you don't miss the opportunity to gain new perspectives from a seasoned leader. Mikel, welcome to the Give Us the Dirt podcast.
Thank you. It's always a humble honor anytime I'm asked to speak or to come on a podcast. So thank you for thinking of me.
I imagine you get asked to speak quite a lot. You're doing a lot of speaking these days, aren't you?
Yes, we're actually going to be at the keynote speaker at the National Demolition Association's conference this year in San Antonio in March. And we are booked pretty heavily, and it's been an absolute awesome experience.
That's incredible. Congratulations on that. That's a huge achievement. Now, you're saying we. You do this with your wife, don't you?
Yes, I always try to say we because there's a saying that behind every great man's a great woman. And in my case, that's such baloney. Beside me has been a great woman. And a lot of the times leading the way at times and encouraging me to believe in me has been a great woman. That's my wife. So I have a hard time saying my book or my company or me. I always try to throw that we in there because without her, I just don't know what I'd do.
Well, and you know what? I know she appreciates that too. And I love the fact that you guys are able to do this together. That's got to make this journey even more special for you.
It does. It really does.
What is her name? Anita? Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. All
right, Mikel, we're going to ask you something a little bit different. Instead of you introducing yourself to our listeners, we're going to ask you to introduce yourself in a different way. How would, if you were on the circuit, you're getting ready to give this big keynote speech to a group, and Anita was the one that was introducing you before you walked on the stage, what would she say? How would she introduce you?
I'm going to tell you, that is what I call a curveball question.
I know. I didn't give you a heads up on that one, but how would Anita introduce you to the guest?
Well, first and foremost, I really think that she just always takes opportunities to show me honor. And I always try to take opportunities to show her honor. We really believe with all of our hearts that we're walking home together. And so with that in mind, I think that she's very humble. She's not a big personality like I am, but I think that she would introduce me as her husband and her best friend and someone that she enjoys doing life with. That's how I would hope she would introduce me.
I don't think you can ask for a better introduction than that. That's great. You know, what a treat to be able to do that. Did you ever envision that y'all would be doing this together?
Years ago, I will tell you, we had a conversation, and this entire time, I keep going back to that moment. And constantly, I guess that second where I just was like, you know what? I know our dynamics together are so amazing. And anytime we choose to do something as one, it flourishes and it does so well. And we balance each other out. And I mean, just from the beginning of our marriage, almost 30 years ago now, I would say, I know we could start a business together. I know we could do this. I know. So it's actually kind of been our dream. I know it's been my dream to work with her side by side every day. And I don't know about you, but for me, my marriage has never been about being the husband so much and her being the wife. It's been about us being best friends. and supporting each other and growing. And we didn't have the best background. We didn't have the best examples in our lives. So we were, often making it up as we were going along. But what we knew more than anything is that we didn't want to move forward without each other. And so this has been a dream, a literal dream come true for us for a long time coming. And it's just been exciting. I remember looking at her, and for 8 years, I traveled just all over the country by myself. And I struggle with autoimmune and some sickness that makes it very challenging to travel alone. And I just remember getting in that mode. You're used to driving and just keeping your head down. And I'm in LaGuardia pushing, and I look up and she's standing next to me, man. And just tears came down my face. And I was like, this is awesome. I'm not alone. I have my best friend with me. And even still, it's hard for me to get used to, just unpacking in the hotel, getting ready for the next day, and then waking up the next morning and she's right there. And it's been phenomenal. It's just been nothing but an absolute dream come true. There's been challenges, hardships, but the mission has mattered, and we just keep pushing. It's just been a phenomenal experience.
What a gift. What an amazing gift to be able to do that. And, my wife and I, we run a nonprofit organization called Dream on 3, but I was different. I never in a million years thought that she and I could work together. I thought that would be a disaster. It could never happen. And it has ended up being just as you described. It's been one of the greatest gifts that we could have ever asked for. And we complement each other so well. We're able to honor each other through it. And when we go home at night, we share the stories. We've lived it together. We have that one piece that we're able to share and talk about. Whereas before, very similar to you, I spent 20 years in the mining industry. There's only so much she wanted to hear about rock. That conversation didn't last long, but now we've got this. And so, well, that's incredible. I'm so glad. Congratulations on 30 years of marriage. Congratulations on the success that you two are able to share together. Hey, so Michael, and I was told early on before we even started, hit the record button. It's Michael. How many people screw that up?
So funny story. When I was a kid and we had a substitute teacher, every time someone would say Mikel Bowman, and I would say, it's Michael. It's the Norse spelling of Michael. It's my parents. We have, Norse and Viking backgrounds in our family, and blah, blah, blah. I have to explain the whole thing. By the time I was in high school and someone said Mikel Bowman, I would just go, here.
Right here. That's me. Did you ever say mom and dad? Did you ever talk to your mom and dad and say, why?
Yes, I did. So my dad met her in Germany in the military. German was actually my first language growing up, and when I was a little boy. And the way you say Michael in German is Michael, and it's spelled very similar to Michelle. And my dad, being a sergeant in the military, was like, there's no way we're naming our kid Michelle. And so therefore they chose Mikel.
I love it. Well, look, I'm glad we got it right. We got a great research department here, and they got me squared away before we ever started. So I'm glad we got it right. Hey, I want to start pretty early on here, Michael, if you don't mind. I want to go back because you reference on your website and even in your book, growing up, watching your dad and his career, and even early on in your career, and it just having a different feel to it, and something that really led you to start finding new ways to do the work. So do you mind taking us back to that and talking about that experience?
Yeah, it's good. I get emotional when I think about it, because my dad worked in the blue collar world his whole life, and he worked so hard, he ruined his own body because of it, the endless amount of back problems and knee problems that he had. But he just knew how to work hard. That was my dad's greatest gift. This guy, it was very rarely that we had a weekend with my dad or a vacation with my dad. It just didn't happen very often. And I'll say the one gift that he had, the man knew how to work. And I'll never forget, he had these two, about almost like 3x2 toolboxes that he carried with him. He was a printing press mechanic and a rigger. And one of the things that he had, these full of tools. And my dad was a huge guy. He could rep 300 pounds, and he never really lifted weights much. He was just naturally huge and strong. And I'll never forget one winter morning, him just hefting both of those toolboxes. And right before he left, he asked me to go get his work boots. He always wore Red Wings. I went and got his work boots, and I noticed that in the soles of them, both of them had ground holes in them. And he went out, and we had about 1.5 feet of snow over that week, and it was slush and ice and wet because of the warm up. And I watched him walk out into the bleak in that, knowing that he had holes in his shoes, and he had to lug these two big heavy tool cases. And I knew I probably wouldn't see him till Sunday, and he'd sleep most that day. And I knew in that moment that he wasn't doing that because this was the time of his life. He did that because he was trying to feed me and my sisters and my mom, and he's trying to pay the bills. And I realized, and I remembered the hardships that he endured. I'm sorry. And the things that he faced and the cultures that he faced, and went to work anyway. And how brave that was. And I admired that greatly in him. And it just changed my mind on how to approach work and how to love blue collar people at a very young age.
Wow. Wow. What a powerful story, Michael. And sounds like an incredible man. Is your dad still with us?
He is 80 and on, so he's still around.
Oh man, you know what? They don't make them like that anymore. It's hard to find that kind of work ethic and that drive. And you're right. The reasons that they did it were different than the reasons that we do them today.
Yeah,
it was well. So you watched that. You watched your dad, and it. Did you say, "Hey, I'm going to go into the construction business. I want to." Was part of that what led you into the mining business? Watching him.
For me, actually, it was always about the non-for-profit. I wanted to go and help people. I just admired soldiers. I admired first responders and pastors, and these people made huge impacts on my life. I knew I was either going to go in the military, or I did not serve, and I was so strong. That was a decision that was very hard for me not to go in the military, because I really wanted to go, but I really felt like that the non-for-profit space and the blue collar space is just where I belonged. I just love blue collar people, and I've always been kind of a little bit too much for some people. And so I just always was attracted to that, and we're in Indiana, so limestone is king here. And I'm not just saying this, it's the highest quality limestone in the United States, and I've literally been coast to coast in limestone pits and granite pits, and I always just felt like I fit in there. And so that's what gravitated me towards it. It was the people, 100% the people.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing just how good the people are in this business. And you get to experience that every day now. You're all over the country talking to companies, construction companies, and people, blue collar workers all over the country right now. I'm sure, is that still hold true? It's still.
Oh yeah. We're just up in Maine last week, as a matter of fact, and just to see, we do what's called the Lead from the Middle conference. So it's 3 PowerPoint presentations where I walk people through the story of the book Lead from the Middle, and then we do something called the Problem Protocol, which is an SOP that I create for my clients of how to handle problems in real time. And then we do another one called Linking Shields, which is a physical demonstration of how important it is for us to really work together, whether or not we like the person standing next to us, how vital and important it is that we do so. And these guys, at the end of it, just looking in their faces and talking with them, seeing tears from grown men, and seeing the power and an impact that those conversations have, and hear their openness and their feedback during that time. It really shows me more and more that the true heroes of this nation are not the actors and pop stars and the famous people that we get shoved down our throats on social media and television all the time. It's the blue collar worker. It's our first responders. It's our soldiers. These people are our heroes, man. And, I talked to them about during COVID, the whole world shut down. And then they were like, except for you guys. you guys go back to work. It's a Tuesday. Okay. We need you. And the narrative's just not being spoken, how heroic that act was, because we knew so little about COVID. We didn't know at that time how lethal it was, how horrible it was. And we had these people getting in dozers. We had these people getting on roofs. We had plumbers. We had nurses. We had, police officers and firemen going out there and doing the job like nothing was different. Trying to take those precautions. I mean, how heroic, how beautiful, how deep is that? There's an old saying that there's no greater love than a man who gives his life for his brother. And I'm telling you, that reigned true through COVID. And it showed how together we are as a nation and how beautiful the blue collar worker truly is.
Well said, my friend. Well said. I got to figure out a way to get you on the ballot this year. That is, you are exactly right. There's no greater hero than that. And appreciate you saying that. And I know everyone that's listening right now does as well. So talk to me about, you mentioned the book. We're going to come back to the book. In Maine, you weren't happen to, were you up there with our friend Herb Sargent?
I actually had lunch with Herb while we were up there. This is a man who's become a good, deep friend of mine. And I just to see what he's done and to be able to work with him and then to work for him has been an absolute treat and honor and a real feather in our cap. And it's just been, there's been no part of work with him that's been tedious.
Yeah, I read his letter inside your book, and you can't find a better endorsement than from Herb Sargent.
It honored me so much, man. I just can't even know. I was flabbergasted by it. I just kind of thought that he was just going to throw something out there. He's a guy known in the industry and a friend of mine, and I appreciate him. And he's a phenomenal writer that I keep pushing and nudging to write a book, for heaven's sakes. And he really honored us. I was like, man, you're going to make the rest of the book look like crap. It's so good.
No, that was great. And what a great endorsement from a wonderful guy. So you've got this incredible work history. You spent 20 years working in leadership roles. You were in the mining industry. You've got this passion for serving. You've got a passion for people and nonprofit. When did Bowman Legacy come into play?
Well, we were working with a very forward-moving and fast-moving organization. I think I was employee 24 when I came on. We were a startup and a mining company, and we zoomed to like a year and a half. We had something pushing towards 300 employees, and so we just grew so exponentially quickly. And I had already been on LinkedIn and was getting a lot of attention on LinkedIn. As a former safety guy who was known for knocking citations out in conference with MSHA, and I kind of got a name for myself in that way with the help of another safety guy by the name of Matt Bunner. I'm big about putting names out there because of people who supported me. It's not that I'm some genius. I had to have help. And once I started with this company, I already had a little bit of a following with LinkedIn, but we were exploding so much that it got overwhelming on LinkedIn. And then I started having presidents of organizations seeing what I was sharing, and they were coming to me and asking me for help on how to lead, how to build a proper culture, how to build leadership programs within the organization, because I realized that's the future. That's the big change that we need to see in our Western endeavors. And so my wife and I sat down one day and I said, I really think that I could make a viable business out of this. And I even had a good trusted friend that was like, there's no way this isn't going to work. And, but I just had to trust my instincts and the prompting of the good Lord. And right before we decided to pull the trigger, I got real cold feet. And I can take you GPS on location on this old country road. My wife and I were taking a walk, and I said, what if this doesn't work? What if we lose the house? What if my kids lose respect for me? What if I fail? And then she said, but what if it works? What if it works? And so we just absolutely took the leap. And we've been, we're on year 4 now of doing this, but we have a lifetime of leadership behind us. And it's been such an adventure.
So you left your job, you quit your job and said, we're going all in.
Well, the funny thing is, and I've got to be honest about this situation, the crazy thing, and I think there's enough distance there that no one will get butthurt about me saying this, but we were building the business. We had the business license already ready, and we were building that infrastructure and getting it ready. And then I was quit. I didn't quit my job. They quit me. They quit about 5 people at the same time. And then there was a big watershed of other people that were let go. And so I was part of probably about the 3rd watershed of people that were let go, but they treated me well, and that, they gave me severance, and, there was no hard feelings about any of that. And And looking
But the
back at
foundation for Bowman Legacy was already there.
it was already there. That was the catalyst to get me to work that much harder. Because I wanted that soft start. I wanted to play in between, right? I wanted 1 foot in and 1 foot out, and it just didn't work out that way.
Oh, that's great. And you know what? Great advice from her. I remember when we got a similar calling and felt like Lord was calling us to shift direction. And I called my wife and I said, "You're going to think I'm crazy." And she said, "I think you're crazy, but if he's calling us to do it, I'm more afraid of not doing it than I am of doing it." And
Absolutely.
and and you look back over it now. I mean, that was what, 2020?
Yeah, it was in the height of COVID. So yeah,
You look back over it now, and that foundation was laid well before,
yeah.
uh,
Yes.
all the events started happening. It was already in place.
It was already in place, and we had already for over a year had been like making plans. I had a good friend of mine, Eric, that he and I kind of sat down and was like, okay, how does this look? What does our culture look like? What is the organization? What's our foundation? What's the basis of everything we're doing? And so those conversations were already being made and made and made and made, and we were more than ready, but I was too chicken to pull the trigger.
Well, it's paid off. It worked out. The
It
plan
did.
was good, and the plan usually is when it's his. So, congratulations on that. Good for you for taking that leap of faith. And so, I want to talk about this book. So you get in, and you've got Bowman Legacies going, and I understand that. But then at some point, you said, "Hey, I'm going to write this stuff down. I'm going to write a book. What the world needs is another book about leadership." Is that right? And
Yeah, well,
I could joke about that because you actually put that in there, that there were 57,000 books on leadership at the time you wrote yours. And
yeah,
you actually questioned writing the book yourself.
yeah. You know, one of the even after I wrote the book, even after it's published and we're marketing the book, I had some questions on, that same question. But the heartbeat of why we started that project and that process was the story behind it and how it could encourage other people about their mental health and how it can encourage people how to lead. And there's several reasons why I wrote the book the way I wrote it. The book is imperfect. It could probably use another editor, but we did that on purpose. We also wrote a small book. It didn't need to be this thick because of some editor telling me we needed to add a chapter here and there, because we wanted a field guide for leadership that anybody could pick up and be challenged by, whether that's the CEO of an organization or that's an entry level worker. And we wanted it to be as simple as possible and give you references to go back to. But a couple of weeks ago, I had a phenomenal opportunity to talk to the individual the book starts about. And he and I together cried over the phone and was so blessed to just even talk to him. And then another worker that I worked with at that time said, "Hey, I called the person that this book was about. We read a chapter together and we cried together. And we're so happy about this book and so proud of you telling our story." So I felt like their story needed to be told. And I feel like there's a lot of people that get secluded in their thinking that they're not enough. And I wanted to put a stop to that. I want to officially say that you're enough, that you have greatness within you, and there's nothing that you can't do. And if you think the world is better off without you, you couldn't be more wrong, because I believe with all my heart that you have a purpose. You can call that God. That's what I choose to call it. You can call it the universe or the hot dog you ate last night. But you have a purpose, and that purpose isn't just to get you rich or look good, but that's to help you to motivate others and to bring hope into this world. And man, we need it.
Is that the difference, Michael? Is that, with between your what you've been able to develop, and you've been able to develop a great message about leadership and how to lead and lead from the middle. Was that the difference between yours and the other 57,000 books that are out there right now? Is that, number one, we've got a story to share. There's a story here that everyone we feel like can relate to at some level. But what was that secret sauce that you had that you said, this is different?
For me, it's about compassion and the love for your fellow man and brotherhood. I was privileged to be in a non-for-profit situation where I saw 1%er bikers spend most of their adult life in prison. And one particular guy I counseled was for something he did not even do, but his brotherhood was so important to him that he took the heat for something and spent 20 years of his life in federal prison. And so seeing that kind of brotherhood missing from the blue collar world in some way, because we're always pretending we're all right. And I think is the key element here. I think the key difference between my book and many others is there's no fluff there. That I get to the point, make it as simple as possible, but at the same time, the message is so powerful and there's so much compassion in it for each other. And I just feel like that was missing from the narrative.
I agree, and I'm so glad you said that, because that's what stood out to me, is that the message of, hey, you're not okay, but that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay, and you can still lead. You can lead through that. You can actually, that can be the thing that makes you a better leader. Embracing that, the humanity and the humility that's captured in your message is what I was my takeaway from it.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been taught in this country, this sick obsession with perfection. I've met a lot of movie stars. I've met a lot of professional athletes and politicians in my lifetime. I've met billionaires and been able to have kind of an eclectic past where I've just been able to rub shoulders with people that were so overwhelmingly well known. And to see that they had more issues in Time magazine, and this person that they were presenting to be was just not real. And when we have terms like, and I said this yesterday on a podcast, I was told one time that these young guys, I was hanging out with these young men at work, and I'm in the executive role, and one of the kids said, yeah, I got catfish this weekend. And I was like, oh, good for you. You went out, you went fishing, you did something for yourself. And the whole room just exploded in laughter. And they were like, no, Mike, you don't understand what that means. I went out with a girl who didn't look anything like her profile. I got catfish. And I was like, oh, I had no idea. And when we have terms like that, because boy, we sure know how to put the perfect, part of us, and look just right. But I think, what we're missing in society is just being real, just being absolutely unmitigatedly real and being honest. And I hope that's a trend that starts happening again.
I do too, and that's a great segue, because you, in the book, and I don't want to spoil the book. If you're listening, you need to get the book. It's called Lead from the Middle, but there is a story which you referenced a little bit earlier ago that prompted you to write this book, and you're dealing with an issue that I feel like is probably the greatest issue that we faced as a country right now, which is mental health. Talk to us about that. What are you seeing in regards to mental health, specifically in the construction industry? And what is your message to leaders of construction companies on how to deal with this very critical issue?
I think what we're seeing is a small trend, a grassroots movement of organizations like we forementioned Sargent and so many others, but Sargent and trying to get ahead of this whole mental health thing. And it's been a dirty word, I think, in civil construction and mining for a long time. We like to pretend that we're all okay, but the fact of the matter is we expect our people to be more with us than they are doing the things that they love to do. I'll never forget my brother. Found out I had a brother as an adult man. As 40 years old, found out that I had a brother who was born and raised in Germany. And when we talked to each other, he asked me, I couldn't see him all week that week. And he said, how many hours did you work this week? And I said, about 75. And he said, but you got off early on Friday. And I said, yeah, I had to push hard so I could spend the weekend with you. And he's like, but when do you have time to go to cafe? When do you have time to be with your friends? When to go hiking and fishing? And I was like, well, the job I have, I don't have time for any of those things. So when is the time for mental health? And we expect these people to work on our dreams, to work for us and make our dreams come true. When are we going to turn that narrative and say, you know what, you matter to me? You know what, your mental health matters to me. Your safety actually matters to me. And it's a key safety component, especially when we're running heavy equipment, doing dangerous work. And so, I mean, there are literally people, if you're listening to this podcast, you don't know anything we're talking about. There are people that work in this world with explosives every day, and they're not in the military. Things that can literally vaporize them into a dust. And they do it every day. That's what they do for a living, guys. And so what I want to see, what my hope is through our endeavors and through podcasts like this one, to shine a light on mental health, to shine a light that it's okay not to be okay. We don't have to be perfect, and it's okay to be open, and that businesses start creating that safe environment to be able to, and that kind of a culture where someone's like, hey, I'm not okay.
Yeah, and I don't think we have anybody that, excuse me, I don't think anybody would disagree with that at all. I think everybody, to your point, is starting to wake up to the fact that this is real. This is an issue, and it's not just an issue for somebody else. It's an issue for all of us.
Yeah.
But what do you say to that CEO, excuse me, that comes in and says, Michael, I hear you. I know it's an issue. I see it all around, but I'm not prepared to deal with this. I can barely hang on to my company right now. I've got financial statements. I've got audits. I've got equipment leases. I've got insurance. I've got work comp issues that I'm having to deal with. I am ill prepared to deal with mental health. What do you tell that CEO about how to lead through that?
I think one of the first things is teaching that person how to lead on a high level. And at Bowman Legacy, is our logo is a shield, obviously. And the reason why we do that is for that concept of linking shields. And the Romans had this massive shield. On one end, there was a loop. On the other end, there's a hook. And that's where that term comes from. Linking shields, obviously, is a military term. But what that means for us is we're going to wade through these problems with you one at a time. We're going to address the biggest one. We're going to teach you how to lead. And leading is one of the most key components to bringing forth that mental health, because when you're leading on a high level, your people already know that you're there for them. And what I found out that is when leaders who are placed in leaders, once we separate them from being a good manager to a great leader, when you make that segue, a lot of these things, all the things you even talked about, start taking care of themselves. And so I think that that's one of the biggest problems. And because we're so reactive, we can never get in proactive mode. We can never get ahead of everything. And what I see a lot of times, my clients, when we first start together, they feel like, oh my gosh, I'm just chasing this rabbit and I can't, like I'm running a marathon and I'm never finding the finish line. And what I want them to understand is that's okay. Let's get some groundwork. Let's take some time. And it takes time to grow. It takes time to change mindsets and to look at things. But once you do, man, all of a sudden there's this proactive relief that happens. I had this young CEO that contacted me, said, I'm even on the fence on whether or not that I want to work with you, but we ended up working with him. And he said, one of the greatest things that honored me, after about a year and a half of working with him, they had a huge meeting. The entire company's there. They're there for their Part 48 meeting, and they've got, all this stuff coming in, and they're going to talk about their 401k that day and all these things. And he said, I looked around at my leaders that you are mentoring and you taught me how to structure. And he goes, their phones are ringing during our break. He said, I looked down at my phone and there wasn't one message on it. He said, what I realized is that I just wasn't leading in the capacity I can. I said, he goes, we didn't make major, huge changes. We just learned how to lead. And he goes, and here I am trying to find something to do.
Wow. That's interesting. And maybe you can tell me a little bit more, because I look at you, you're the doctor, right? And these patients are calling you and they're saying, hey, we need some help. What are the symptoms that they are showing by the time they call you or they decide, hey, we've got to call the doctor in? What kind of symptoms are showing up?
Well, first and foremost, when you call a doctor, I think what a lot of consultants that I'm seeing that do is they'll walk in the room with your family and say, I don't know how to tell you this, but you've got cancer. And then they walk out, right? And that's just not what we do. We walk you through the steps, but the symptoms are you're tired. You're tired. You're tired. I had a CEO one time, man, and it was so sad. I took him out to lunch and we're sitting there together, and he's sitting across this very small table. It's a very tight room. It's a great little bistro in town. And he just looked at me and tears running down his face. He goes, I don't even like coming to my own work anymore, my own business. He said, he goes, I get anxiety before I even walk through the door. And I was like, we're going to change that. We're going to change that and get your passion back to leading your people. And so just that overwhelmed feeling like you've got a lot of irons in the fire, and you're starting to see it at home. You're starting to see it at home. The husband or the wife is talking to you and they're saying, hey, our quality of life here at home is not good. You come home and you notice that your kids look different. You've missed a growing pattern in their life. They realize they look a little bit more adult, and you miss that moment. No business should take that much from you. You know, there's this narrative that hustle culture is everything, but I'm telling you, hustle culture is killing you. And there is a right way to lead in such a way and challenge other workers to rise up in your queue of leadership to a higher level that you should not be pushing. And if you feel like you're doing too much, you probably are.
Yeah, that's a great point, and you made me think back to, I don't know if you heard Brian Brian McManus's episode, but Brian talks about a similar experience where we went through a transformation here at Hoopah Grading, but it was prompted by the joy was gone. The joy was missing. The fun, it wasn't fun anymore. I remember him saying it wasn't fun anymore. And when you say that, that's that symptom that you're talking about. Hey, there's a lot more going on here. And if you're at that point, it's time to do something about it. But the good news is, and the good news that you bring to the table is, hey, this is fixable.
It is 100%. It's not terminal. It's not terminal at all. I had a CEO call me one time and said, I don't know why I'm calling you. I don't know what I need, but I know I need you. He said, my life is at a cross. He said, I'm not even at a crossroads. He goes, I'm at a dead end right now. Said, all I see is a big wall in front of me. I don't know what to do.
So when you walk into that situation, are you starting with him, or are you starting in the middle?
I'm starting with him. I feel like if the whole head is sick, the body's sick. In martial arts and in wrestling, high school wrestling, we used to say, control the head, control the man, or where the head goes, the body will follow. And this is exactly the way a business is. You have to look at it more organically. Your business isn't just this thing made up of equipment and people. It is a body. It's a living thing. And wherever that head is going, the whole thing is following it. And so it's important to get first in that president, that CEO level, and mentor and get them through some personal issues. Because these people, a lot of times, and blue collar people who are listening to this, look, your executive staff, you have no idea the weight and that they carry. And what you have to do is start to have compassion for them, because you guys aren't just the dirt guys and then the office guys. You are one. You are one body, and without one, you can't have the other. And so once we start to recognize that more and more, especially if you're in the middle, first of all, if you're in the middle wanting to progress, that ideology will move you forward and get you where you want to go, like heck wouldn't have it. But you also have to have that compassion, because leaders are expected to be perfect all the time. And the moment you fail anymore these days, people start hating you for it. And that's just not okay.
Yeah. And you don't get an opportunity to explain. No one ever is going to see the weight that you're carrying.
No.
Yeah, it's a heavy load.
It is a heavy load. And that's why I always tell my guys, these people, I say, hey, while we're here, nothing's going to harm you. I've got my shield over you, and your problems don't scare me. Even the things that are inside of your mind that we're going to discover during this time that might be really dark thinking, I'm not going to judge you during this time. We're going to work through it together. It doesn't scare me or disgust me or make me angry. And I've literally had presidents of companies cuss me for a good 5 minutes, beautiful litany of 4-letter words, one after another, to come back the next week and go, I was out of line. You are completely right. Let's move forward to this together. And so it didn't bother me. It doesn't bother me. You got to take that approach. When you look at the wound, you got to take that Band-Aid off to see if it's got gangrene or if it's healed up,
Yeah. Yeah. Some of us kind of sit in that for a minute, let it marinate before we come to it. But what a great approach to it, and makes a lot of sense to me. I want to talk about, you've got you mentioned your nonprofit experience and your compassion for people. Do you in the book, you talk about a call that you receive at 3:00 in the morning from a coworker.
Yeah.
Without ruining the book for somebody, because I want them to go out and get the book. Talk about that moment. If you just give us a little bit about that moment and how you led through that.
You're being so good about not trying to throw, the book out there, but I'm just going to, just jump in there if that's all right. It's 3 a.m. in the morning and I'm in the Midwest and I get a call from California, and it's a suicidal worker. Long story short, it's a suicidal worker with a live handgun with a live round in the chamber. And this is a guy that I loved. This is a guy I worked with. This is a guy that I got in the dirt with. This is a guy who had a lot of dynamic. It still does to this day. And I'm just so proud of him. And when you get that kind of phone call, I'm going to tell you right now, whether it's your kids or whether it's your coworker or a brother or sister, a family member, in that moment, if you say even so much of a lie, you got the front seat to hearing them take their own life. And you've got to live the kind of life that when you say a certain thing, that they know that you're going to tell the truth. It was terrifying. I had been in this position before, actually, with a young man who had a handgun in his lap at the VA, at a parking of not a VA, a VFW. And I walked up as a Marine Corps vet, and he had a live Glock in his pocket, in his lap. And after about an hour and a half, he and I were in the car together, and I had the handgun. So I'd been in this situation before, but I was there. I was in that moment. In this situation, I wasn't. I had no control. I couldn't wrestle him. I couldn't snatch the gun out of his hand. And so literally it was prayer and just calming and centering myself, because I was in a situation that I couldn't get out. What was I supposed to do? Hang up the phone? No, you just got to face it. And you've got to do it with integrity. You've got to do it with honor and truth. And that's the only thing that's going to get you through it. And even then, it's still a gamble.
Michael, I can't imagine. I can't imagine getting that phone call, and you could only hope that one would handle it with the same level of integrity and compassion and patience as you have there. You know, that moment, God used you to save somebody. But what's cool about it, I heard you talk about it, that you recently had a conversation with the gentleman that story's about. You know, God used him and that part to help you and launch you into a place where you could continue to serve.
Absolutely. I mean, how humbling is that? You know, I think a lot of the times too, we look at problems in our life so concrete. We were meant as the human animal to have problems. We were meant to adapt to the weather. We were meant to sit out in the weather. We were meant to hunt. We were meant to hike. We were meant to move. We were meant to meet hardships. The saber-toothed tiger outside of the cave. We were meant to. And we look at the saber-toothed tiger as if it's our enemy, but we don't look at it. It's a part of our journey and our story and our life. And so when we look at problems, man, we look at them so concrete. What we have to do is look at these things or things where we were hurt in our past and realize I can use this. It can either use me or I can use it. And I've decided, you know, I grew up as a kid. I've been molested. As a kid, I was physically abused as a kid. I was verbally abused for years of my entire childhood life. My adolescent life was verbally abused and bullied. And I'm going to tell you something. I could either sit there and hate for those people and those things that happen, or I can go, you know what? Let's put that bitterness aside and let's grow. Let's look at this. Let's see how I can use it for power and make my problems, make my situation bring power into my life and empower other people. And that's just where I'm at with that.
Yeah, and that's a mindset shift. That is just changing your mindset to a growth mindset.
Yes.
How do I take this? Excuse me. How do I take this situation and get better from it and use it instead of this using me? That common thread can be found through everything that you do. Matter of fact, you posted on LinkedIn, it's probably late last year, about a book that you were reading at the time called "The Obstacle Is the Way."
Yes.
And I remember seeing that post, and I grabbed the book, and I loved it. It was, it was incredible. And I love that mindset. And it's a mindset shift that, hey, the obstacle is not something to prevent you from achieving your goals. The obstacle is the thing that's going to help you achieve your goals.
Yes, absolutely. We have to have what I call a paradigm shift in our lives, in our thinking. And paradigms are something that we're used to. We grew up, we understand certain things, and we're so concrete, and this is just the way life is. But when you pull that rug out from underneath you, there's a well of wisdom and knowledge out there to glean from and grow from and help you to move forward in ways you never thought possible. And so what I want you to understand is, if you right now are in your life and you just like, there's just nothing but problems and you're not happy about where you are, hey, let's look at it. Let's look at your life and let's have a paradigm shift here. Get that book, by the way. The Obstacle Is the Way. You know what I mean? No bodybuilder says, I'm going to be a bodybuilder and walk into the Arnold Classic and crush it without hurting, without there being obstacles. I mean, weightlifting in and of itself is tearing muscles and then building them back up. What an arduous task. And then they have to look at themselves in the mirror and analyze every aching part of themselves. If they do that through a judgmental part and just a hateful approach to it and a concrete thinking, they're never going to move forward, because there's always going to be that fatty part on them that's just not enough. And so what I want to encourage you to understand, if you're going to move past this problem, whatever it is, if it's a career change, if it's a marital problem, if it's personal problems, you've got to change your mindset. You got to stop hating yourself. Stop saying you're stupid. You're not stupid. There's not a dumb person listening to this right now. You have greatness within you. I choose to believe that God put it there. You can say the universe, and like I said, or the hot dogs you ate last night, I don't care, but you do. Every person I've ever counseled, every person that I've ever mentored in my life, every person I've ever led, I have been able to look at them and find greatness within them and enhance that greatness. So it is there. So find it, invest in it, read books like that one. Read Lead from the Middle, learn how to lead, learn how to grow, and realize that you don't have to be perfect. And in that and of itself is a great and tremendous growth opportunity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, I was glad you posted that. That was a game changer for me. I enjoyed reading it. And we're going to stay on this mindset theme a little bit. Matter of fact, we're going to put you to the test a little bit, Michael. I'm going to throw out some statements that I imagine a lot of our listeners have heard or even said in the workplace. And then I want you to give it to me. I want you to give me the statement back, but in a different mindset, in a more professional, positive way.
Okay.
These meetings are a waste of time.
What can I do to help these meetings move forward on a higher level and take ground instead of keep giving it all the time?
There you go. There you go. How about I'll worry about me, you worry about you.
Let's be concerned with one another. Let's link shields like brothers, and let's move forward together. I've got your 6 if you've got mine.
I like it. All right. You are annoying the crap out of me right now. How do you fix that one?
I'm so sorry. That one really got me.
Got you on that one, didn't we?
You're annoying the crap. Hey, you know what? I probably need to take a break for a second. Let me step off and collect myself, and let's come back and let's talk about this behavior exhibiting right now.
Are you talking about you, or are you actually fixing this statement right now?
I'm fixing the statement and how this actually agitates me.
Great job. Great job. All right. How about you spend a lot of time bringing up problems, but never solutions?
This is one that has been said to me, and that's actually in the book. Look, let's focus on the answers here. We know the problem and we keep talking about the problem, but let's look at the root answers here, the root issues of the problem. And from now on, and this is actually something that I coach my people on, from now on, when we bring up a problem in these meetings, I want you to, before you bring up a problem, unless it's a safety issue, I want you to bring me 5 answers to that problem. 5 answers that you think that we can do to solve that problem.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great practice. Don't bring me a problem without the solution. But then I heard we had a guest on here one time took it a step further, said, hey, don't just bring me a solution to the problem. Bring me a solution that you are a part of.
Yeah, amen.
You're actively involved in that solution.
Yes. That's good. Yeah, I appreciate that.
All right, last one. That's the dumbest thing I think I've ever heard.
Man, and I've heard this so many times. And I'm going to tell you something. This has happened to me in a meeting, and man, I stopped it right there. I had everybody leave the room and I talked to the foreman. We were actually in a work trailer. And I'm telling you guys, if I worked for you and you said that to me or anyone else, I'm going to let you know you don't ever say that to one of your employees. If you really want to drag down your kid, or you really want to drag somebody down because you feel like, well, I'm just one of those, I get to the point type of people, you getting to the point shows that you are not willing to do anything but manage, and you don't know how to lead, because as a leader, you need to inspire people and bring them along the way. That statement runs through me like diarrhea through a screen door. And if you really want to get me fired up, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. No, this is where you don't speak. When that comes to your mind, and if you think for 1 second, I don't think that sometimes, you're wrong. But what I want to do is I want to get to the root of what they're saying. And what's great as a leader, when you hear something that's way off, at least you know where that person is. And what I choose to do, and my clients will all do this because this is a language we all speak now, is I say, really, that's where you're at. Okay, consider this. Have you thought about this? because then I'm bringing my knowledge instead of beating them down in that moment and calling them an idiot. This is someone I'm linking shields with every day. My back is turned to this guy all the time. Why do I want to give him a cause to put something in that back? No, I want to uplift this guy and encourage him and then give him knowledge where he falls short.
What a great way to look at that. And that's a great one to end on. Thank you, Michael, so much for giving us that. That was, that's the quickest way to just deflate somebody. Get them. They will never, ever offer their opinion or try to lead or try to find those solutions if that's going to be the response from their leader.
Exactly. That's when they're done. They shut off. And there's a mental protection there for a lot of people, especially blue collar people. Blue collar people can smell blood in the water, and they know when you care and they know when you don't. And it's black and white for them. And if you're not consistent as a leader, boy, it's going to be hard for you to get traction that you need to get people to trust you and move forward with you. I was told one time by a boss of mine, he was the president of the organization, his name was Matt, and he said, Michael, there's two kinds of leaders in this world. There's the kind that says charge, and the whole line steps 10 steps back, hoping that they get whacked right there in front of them. That there's the other leader that says charge, and everyone runs ahead of them, trying to protect them because they know what value they've brought to them personally and the team as a whole. And then he said, Michael, which one of those do you want to be? And I'm going to tell you, I want to be the second one. And if you are listening today and you want to be that second one, and you've got to watch how you talk to people, you've got to be an uplifter and an encourager, and you've got to be bringing education to people. You've got to be inspiring people. You've got to be entrusting people, and you've got to be engaging with people. And when you do that, that's when innovation in your organization and your team and even in your family is born, because these people know you trust them to do something, and the good people in your organization will carry the weight of that.
Woo! Michael, preach, brother.
This is my soapbox, baby.
I love it. Uplifting, encouraging, inspiring. Man, you got checks in all those boxes. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to get back out there and make something happen. So this is, Michael, thank you. This has been a lot of fun. I know you've got, I can't keep you all day, even though I would love to. I'd love to hear you talk about this all day long, but I know you've got some sick patients that need your help right now. Well, Michael, thank you so much. Please tell Anita how proud we are of what you guys have done and what you've built and what you've accomplished. It's incredible work. You're doing a great job, and it's much needed in this industry right now. So keep up the great work. People that are listening, how can they find out more about you?
LinkedIn is a great place. Our website, bowmanlegacies.com, is another place. The book is on Amazon, Lead from the Middle. I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn talking to business leaders and trying to inspire you with posts. I'm on Instagram too, but I'm not an enormous fan of Instagram. So that's where you can find me. We're on YouTube with the Legacy Quest channel. We've got like 300 some videos on there. If you need a daily dose of encouragement or advice, it's a great place to go. So check out Legacy Quest on YouTube, and that's where you can find me.
That sounds great. Michael, thank you so much. It's been an honor having you on the Give Us the Dirt podcast. Appreciate you sharing a little bit of your story with us and some insightful tricks on how we can all become better leaders.
Thank you.